Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to bring back how Brexit is affecting our food supply chain here in the UK. But in this case it's less about how a hard Brexit would devastate it and more about, well, how it's been affected right now. But first, if you find yourself enjoying the video, please click the like button and subscribe to the channel. So the British Meat Processors Association has announced that several festive treats are likely to be in short supply due to Brexit complications this Christmas, with pigs in blankets being a prime example. Now, no, I'm not going to hold up a minor inconvenience as a devastating consequence of Brexit. I mean, obviously, people can get their own sausages of any kind and their own streaky bacon and wrap one around the other, and that's pretty much the same thing. I actually don't understand why people don't already do that, because then you get the right amount and you get the type of sausage you want as well. But there you go. But there are people out there who, of course, can't even afford the food they need to stay alive, let alone wrap one food wrapped around another that any bugger can do. And the number of people who won't be able to afford food will have swelled in number if Cummings and Johnson had got away with their no-deal Brexit scheme for this Thursday. No, it's more the cause of the problem that should worry us. So the reason is that the industry relies on getting 60% of its workforce from other countries. Seasonal EU workers are just not coming over. And who can blame them? After a Brexit campaign that complained about foreigners, coming over here and nicking our jobs, the Brexit campaign that just stoked up xenophobia. And it was so bad that racists all believed that Brexit was about the single issue. Now, for millions it was, but they thought it was everyone. And as soon as the result was announced, attacks on foreigners increased. They have continued at record levels ever since. Foreign workers have been verbally and physically abused in Britain since the Brexit referendum. So they're not coming over. Why should people travel to another country to do what is fairly crap work to feed Britons who then abuse them for it, rather than thank them? In addition, the fall in the value of the pound has caused an even more dramatic reduction in the last year in the number of EU workers coming over and doing this sort of seasonal work, because they're effectively getting a pay cut as well as a load of abuse. So now we don't have enough workers in the meat processing industry. We already knew that farmers aren't able to get enough seasonal workers to pick their crops as well. That was being reported well over a year ago. And this is happening now. It's not just something threatened by Priti Patel's end to freedom of movement. That would just kill it off completely. But these shortages are now, which means British food is not getting to market. It's not been picked out of the ground. It's not been processed. So it's not available for us to buy. According to government figures, we produce about 50% of our own food, or we did in 2017. These sort of figures, it takes quite a while to get them updated. Now that means that the other 50% is imported, mostly from Europe, of course. Now it was suggested that we could possibly increase our capacity to nearly 70%, but that would still leave us well short in the event of fresh food not being able to get across our borders before it spoils. But that was for a hard Brexit. Right now we're still in the EU. Nothing has changed except perceptions. And why do we have these shortages, even with Brexit, you may ask? After all, millions of people voted for Brexit on the old myth about foreigners coming over here and nicking our jobs. Well, they've stopped doing that. So why don't all those Leave supporters who live near these factories more than the farms, I would say, get themselves over there and do those now vacant jobs? Couldn't be because they're too lazy to do them, could it? Actually, the reality is that often a lot of these places, particularly the farms, tend to be in rural areas, of course, where there isn't a lot of unemployment. So that's why they were hit very quickly. But there are plenty of processing plants in the towns of high unemployment. I grew up in one, but those vacancies are still there. Not that they'll have any choice soon, the people who are turning these jobs down, particularly if they voted Brexit, because voting for Brexit didn't just mean that we now have jobs not being done, which also means a downturn in our economy. Bear in mind that if people can't buy British food, well, then they'll buy the same thing imported from elsewhere. Well, that means a greater proportion of their grocery money is effectively leaving the country to boost someone else's economy. Very neighbourly. But no, they also voted, as we've seen in the last couple of weeks, to destroy their employment rights. That was always going to be the case anyway with Brexit. So now these people moaning about not having a job because of foreigners will find a desperate food industry in need of staff and a desperate country in need of that food. The job centre will be ordered to insist that people go along and do that job. After all, most people will be capable of doing it. It's often hard work, especially picking crops in fields for those who do live close enough to be able to do that. They may not be able to work at a fast enough rate. It is too much hard work. So they'll be sacked. Never mind the procedures now, they'll be gone. Workers' rights have been thrown onto the bonfire if Boris Johnson gets his Brexit. There's no doubt about that. You'll be sacked. You'll then have no income. So you'll try and sign on again. Not happening. They'll say you were sacked for not working hard enough. They say you tried to get yourself fired so you can go back on benefits. So those benefits will be stopped and you'll be literally without any money. Oh, and everything will cost more as well. And all because you voted Brexit because foreigners were taking the jobs that, when it comes down to it, you don't want anyway. And there is proof of that because there are a lot of very heavily Leave constituencies, towns, that have these processing plants, that have these vacancies. But that's those who voted to leave, and most especially the ones who still would. People were lied to during the Brexit campaign. Some have seen the light. But there are still those who would vote to leave, even though they now accept it will cause economic damage. Well, they deserve this fate. They can take the economic damage. But what about more innocent people who either never supported Brexit, or at least don't now? Those who are already in desperate poverty. Well, it's obvious enough. Food is already not getting to the market because it's been left to rot in the ground, or it can't be processed into the forms we need to buy. Less food at the market means scarcity. Scarcity doesn't just mean finding it harder to get what you need, it means the price goes up. There are people who already can't afford enough food. This is a devastating outlook for those people. It also risks dropping those who are just about managing, as the previous Prime Minister used to describe them, to not quite managing as well. The British Poultry Council, which finds itself with exactly the same problem, said, and I quote, "If these vacancies cannot be filled, we will not have access to the labour needed to feed this nation, which will have a significant impact on the production of and therefore cost of food." So this is more than just the inconvenience of wrapping your own sausages in bacon this Christmas. The threat to our supply of food, which is an essential of life, of course, is not simply threatened by Brexit, particularly the worst form of Brexit. It's happening right now, at a time when we don't even know if we ever will leave the EU, though of course it has never looked more likely. So I hope you found the video interesting. If you'd like to support the channel further, then please click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.